Hello and welcome to Never Seen It. This is a podcast about movies that we haven't seen yet. My name is Trent. I am sitting here with Betsy.
Hello, everyone.
We are here to talk about a movie that I cannot believe it's taken this long for us to actually watch, Betsy, because we're past the middle. We're nearing the end of Biggest Movie May. Now, when I think about big movies, I think about big directors. And believe it or not, we talked about this in the previous episode. We have never covered a Spike Lee movie on any of our shows. However, we have seen Spike Lee movies, and we've actually talked about a Spike Lee movie on a different podcast.
Yeah, we did Inside Man over with our friend Andy on Fat Dude Digs Flicks. We obviously saw Black Klansman when that got nominated for Best Picture. I think you and I independently have both seen Malcolm X.
No, I've never seen
You've
Malcolm
never
X.
seen... Oh my gosh. Add it to the list.
It's already on the list, yes.
And I think that's kind of it, unless I go and dig through my files. But those are the ones I know for sure that I have seen.
And I know that Spike Lee has just directed a lot of movies that he didn't even create. He didn't write himself. Like Inside Man, he didn't write it. He just directed it.
And recently, he's been doing a lot of like adaptations. We just recently watched Old Boy, the Korean version, on one of our Patreon shows. Mm-hmm. And we found out that he directed the remake. So I don't think we're going to watch it. I think you might watch it.
I might just watch it out of a really weird, morbid curiosity, because I understand that the remake of Old Boy is not very good. It stars Josh Brolin and Elizabeth Olsen. They changed some things about the content of the movie. I'm not going to spoil what happens in Old Boy, but they changed some things to make it, I don't know, more palatable to an American audience. But we're not talking about Old Boy. If you really want to hear our episode about Old Boy, go to patreon.com/neverseenitpod. But today, Betsy, we're covering Do the Right Thing from Mr. Spike Lee. Now, as I said, we haven't seen this movie yet. What do you know about Do the Right Thing?
I know this is something that is like representative of a time and place in New York. If Spike Lee is anything, he is a New Yorker. And I think this movie, more than any of his other ones, is his love letter to that part of the world.
And as you mentioned, this is a time and a place kind of a movie where this is exactly what he was observing living in New York City.
And I don't honestly know exactly what the movie is about. I want to say it's just like a summertime, like it's hot, it's chaotic. There's a lot of talk of race, I'm sure, because that is not something he has ever shied away from. I know there is one character that is going to reference a movie that you have watched with me, and I'm not going to elaborate on that because you'll know it when you see it.
All right.
I know some of the actors, but I don't know the actors' names. Like, they're just people I have seen in other movies.
Yeah, it's these character actors that have shown up in a lot of different things.
Maybe Rosie Perez is in this? That's the only one that I'm thinking is in this.
I happen to know some things here that I'm not going to reveal because I've watched a trailer recently and that revealed a whole lot of stuff to me as far as who's in the movie. But I think you're on the right track here when it comes to, hey, this is about, I mean, I hate the term race relations, but that's kind of what it is. That's what the term has become. And to my knowledge, it's just people kind of working out differences. And I don't think that there's a big lesson that comes out of the movie. I think this is just a slice of life that Spike Lee is putting on screen. And I know that Spike Lee is an actor in the movie. I think he's even the main character.
I do recall him being on the poster because this is very early in his career. It's not his first movie.
It's not.
But I think most people consider this his best movie.
Or at least the most Spike Lee movie. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say.
Purely something from his mind where he wrote it, he directed it. This is definitely something that people bring up. If you're naming Spike Lee movies, this is probably the first one they're going to name.
Yeah. And if you didn't know, guys, we are very white. We're from South Dakota.
Casual reminder.
You could not get more white than us. So just know that before we go in to watch Do the Right Thing, a Spike Lee joint. We'll be right back. And that was Do the Right Thing. Betsy, how you feeling after that one? Because we could go a lot of different ways after that.
Trent, if we didn't have the kind of podcast we have where we just sat down and watched the movie, it's been a few minutes and now we're going to talk about it, I would want to sit here in utter silence for roughly 40 minutes to just think about this movie. Because obviously, you and I are not people who will fully understand what this movie is about, what this movie really represents, but we can react to it. We can feel things about it. And I had every emotion from I was laughing. I'm amused by the people just living their lives and bullshitting with each other all day. And I also was crying. Like, it goes from everything is fine to the entire neighborhood changes on a dime. And it is so dramatic that it's just like, whoa, even though, I'll be honest, I knew something happened in this where it amped up. I didn't know how we got there. I didn't know what my feeling about it was going to be. I didn't know the result. But it all happens so fast that I'm just sitting there going, what is happening?
Yeah, I was waiting for something to happen here to really give the movie a jolt. Because, as you said, there's a lot of stuff happening in the movie, but really nothing of substance is happening. We're kind of going along the day. Everybody's complaining about the heat. Yeah, some tempers are flaring here and there, but it's not really a big deal. But everything kind of comes to a head here. And I didn't really expect what happened to happen. And unlike you, I didn't really know what was going to be happening here. I didn't know there was going to be a big moment where everything is changing on a dime, as you said. So apart from that incident, the rest of the movie is, I think, a really good snapshot of what it was like to live in this, I guess, neighborhood.
They filmed the entire movie on like a block. They shut down a block in Brooklyn, and all of the events just, you're panning back and forth from that end of the street to this end of the street. And then you cross the street and you do it again the other direction.
It's like a little small town, and you and I can relate to that. Everybody kind of knows everybody. You walk down the street, you can see everybody, you know everybody's name, and you know everybody's business too.
And today everybody has the same problem because it's fucking hot. It is the hottest day in the summer. Everybody's miserable, which puts you on edge to begin with. So it sort of sets the table for what ends up happening in the evening on the same day. And it's a great day by all standards for most people. Nobody gets fired. Nobody has anything happen to them. Yeah, they fight with each other, but it seems like the way people fight when you're just in a neighborhood, you all know each other.
It's also New Yorkers.
Yeah, you all know each other. You're all just going to scream at each other about something today.
Yeah, and then you say, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, and then you cool off and it's fine. Like when Buggin' Out gets kicked out of the pizza place because he's starting some shit, Mookie tells him, come back in a week. It'll be fine.
It'll all blow over.
He'll forget all about it.
He will welcome your $2 every, they say that he was going in there 3 times a day.
Acting like he doesn't know what the price of the fucking pizza
Exactly.
is that he asks for every time he's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the way that you know everybody. It's just your neighbors. It's a thing that happens. Everybody's miserable. It's too fucking hot. There's the guy who drinks too much. There's the woman who's just watching the neighborhood pass by. There's the kids. There's the punks. Everybody's just living their lives. And it's not until the end of the day where they start screaming at each other and it turns from screaming into something else. And it's not a force within the neighborhood. It is a force from outside the neighborhood that escalates it from 1 to 1,000.
Yeah, and this is something that we can't really relate to because what is happening here when everything really escalates is something that they're trying to take care of as a group. You know, we don't really need any outside influence here to tell us what our business is. We don't need the cops coming in to push us around. We also don't need the cops to mitigate whatever disagreement that is happening here. We can take care of it ourselves. But I think the biggest question coming out of this movie, and I've only done a very, very cursory look at what the controversy or the conversation really is about this movie, that being, did Mookie do the right thing? When he goes over, grabs the trash can, and throws it into the window. Why did he do it? What is your interpretation of his motive here? Because, again, I feel like it could go a lot of different ways.
I don't honestly know, because I also just really quick glanced at something that said he did it to de-escalate the situation, but also just looking at it at face value, he kind of started it all. So it's the question of, from the outside looking in, why did he do that? Because it just looks like he started it and then the whole place gets burnt to the ground and the neighborhood is absolutely outraged. But then you have to remember why they're outraged, because they were having a fight. They would have separated eventually, and it would have calmed down, because we've seen it all day long. People have been having tiny spats. People get separated. It all works out.
The mayor's up there trying to calm everybody down, trying to put things in perspective. And you think maybe it's going to go the route of a normal movie where you have the swelling music and he's up there telling them about the past 25 years.
He'll give a rousing speech.
I've known Sal my entire life, all this other stuff. But no, Mookie took it upon himself to take action.
Because when the cops came, they killed Raheem. That's what I'm getting at here. That didn't need to happen. But arguing about pictures on a wall turns into someone is dead and we're burning a building to the ground.
Yeah, there's a lot of different triggers that happen here. It is Sal using racial slurs. It is him using the baseball bat to bust up the boombox. And it is Raheem and Bugging Out coming in there and just yelling when they are closed. They're trying to conduct business here for a few extra people that come in. But they come in there with this attitude, with this, aggression. And yeah, there's blame on both sides here. But those are only some of the instigating moments here. The real big thing happens when the cops intervene and they murder Radio Raheem. From that point on, it completely falls off the rails.
And this is where you and I, as people who grew up in South Dakota, who are white people, who have never lived through a situation like this, who don't understand a situation like this because it is so foreign an idea to us, that we can't look at this and make any sense of why he does it. Like, I could say why I think, but I don't even know what I think. Like, why does he do this? Does he do the right thing? I have no idea, Trent, because I am not a person who's in a place to have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
I can't understand why people do things like this in a charged situation, the way that they all react, because there is a justifiable anger that suddenly bursts out of all of these people at the end of Do the Right Thing.
Right. And you're not just reacting to what is happening in the crowd and to the building and everything like that. All these people witnessed those cops choke the fuck out of this kid and have his body fall limp on the concrete.
They all saw it and they load him up in the car and they drive him away.
Yeah.
And then they only have one other place to direct all of this anger, and it's at Sal's Pizza Shop. It doesn't have to make sense to us, but in that moment, it makes a hell of a lot of sense to them.
Yeah, and I think here Mookie is justified in some ways of doing it and not justified in other ways. The thing I wanted to read here, this is directly from the trivia, and I think it's really apt. It says, Spike Lee has reportedly stated that in his view, the reason that Mookie threw the garbage can through the window was because he saw his best friend Raheem be murdered in front of him. Lee acknowledged the alternative theory that Mookie did it to save Sal and his sons, and although that was never his intention, he likes the fact that the scene has sparked such different interpretations.
He made a movie to be discussed. He didn't make a movie for you to have your own opinion and have that be the right answer. That's the thing. The question of do the right thing. What is the right thing in this situation, Trent?
Right, which is why I think at the very, very end, when he is putting the two opposing points of view when it comes to civil rights. which is, do you acquire your civil rights through nonviolent protest and action, or do you go the alternate path where Malcolm X says, well, I would be justified in performing violence upon the people who are performing violence on me, at least in his interpretation.
It's an equal opposite reaction thing.
Yes. So again, I think you can look at this and say, no matter what his intentions were, he did do the right thing. Because if he was trying to save Sal, well, guess what? Financially, he's fine because he's got the insurance money. He even brought it up himself.
And instead of the entire gang of people that is surrounding these three white guys, taking all this vengeance out on them when it wasn't their fault, let's be honest, they were not the ones that killed Raheem.
Yeah.
Instead of targeting all of that anger and hostility to them, they get removed from the situation and they take it out on a building instead. And it fucking sucks for Sal. And Sal, I think, is a really decent person. Like, he says many, many times throughout the movie, like, this is where I've set up shop. I'm really proud of this place. These are my kids in the neighborhood. I have fed them and they've grown up on my food.
He is proud of the fact that he has been in business for 25 years. He's never had a problem with any of the people in the neighborhood. And the reason why he is here is because there are umpteen different Italian restaurants in the Italian neighborhoods. You don't need them over there.
But meanwhile, his son, John Turturro, is really a racist. He is not happy with where they are. He doesn't understand why they're here. And there's a great scene between the two of them where Danny Aiello tells them, you know, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
I'm sad that you feel that way because you've grown up here too. And it doesn't make any goddamn sense how you can be in the same set of circumstances and feel this way, and I feel completely differently. And there's tons of that throughout the movie. But yeah, you feel bad for Sal when this all goes down because, again, he is not the reason for this. Could he have reacted differently?
He's not the sole reason for it.
He's not the sole reason. Could he have reacted differently when Buggin and Raheem come in, blasting music, yelling at him to put some black people on the wall? Yes, he could have. But it is the end of the day. It is a long, hot day.
We're closed.
Everybody is spread so thin in this moment. And it goes from him saying, we had a really great day. I'm proud of you, sons.
Mm-hmm.
And someday I'm going to give the business to you. To, he's sitting on the stoop of his burnt down restaurant within about 12 hours. And so you can't help but feel bad for him to some extent in this situation.
Yeah, you also can't completely call Sal and the sons racist. Yes, they do use racial slurs all over this fucking movie. Part of that, I'm sure, is their upbringing. I'm not trying to excuse any of it. But yes, those words have been in the culture for a lot longer than you and I have been alive, Betsy. And again, it's not something that we really understand. Again, I am not trying to excuse ever using racial slurs. That is not what we're about on this podcast or even outside of the podcast. Please believe me. Which is why you kind of have to go back to blaming everybody here. And it's just all of the tension building up over everything. It is not just one inciting incident.
And there's just a string of them that they show throughout the day. Like, it's hot, so the kids bust open the fire hydrant and the cops come and they're just like, hey, you know, don't do that. Right after they've like sprayed a guy in a car who's driving by screaming slurs at them all. Like, don't get me fucking wet. Don't get me fucking wet. This is my car.
Exactly.
And then, of course, they get him wet.
Yeah. And the cops are actually, you know, acting semi-okay in this moment. Because, yeah, they understand it's hot. The kids want to actually, you know, cool off a little bit. But they also say, yeah, go to Coney Island if you want to swim in a pool.
Like, that's so easy for everybody in New York.
Of course. They also don't bust anybody for doing this.
No, they just shut it down.
And they give shit to the guy in the convertible saying, well, you maybe had it coming to you, man.
Yeah, but the guy in the convertible uses some choice words.
Oh, yeah.
And then all the guys on the street are just like, hey, ask him. He saw everything. I didn't see anything. And I don't think anybody else did. What did he say? He said something like, those who see don't tell and those who tell don't see. Something like that. Like counterintuitive.
It's the whole thing about no snitching.
Yeah. Basically, fuck off, guy.
Yeah.
Like,
let
leave us alone.
handle our own business here.
Yeah.
But all right, I think that's a good place for us to take a break. We've gotten past, I think some of the really heady stuff here. We're going to take a break, take a word from our sponsor. We'll be back to talk more about Do the Right Thing. You know, recently I've been bored and feeling out of sorts. My normal podcasts just weren't cutting it anymore, so I talked to my doctor, and she recommended patreon.com/neverseenitpod, and now I feel better than ever.
Patreon.com/neverseenitpod is a once-weekly subscription podcast used to create joy. Side effects may include a sense of euphoria, aching muscles from smiling, and a dependence on the host's addictive personalities. Do not take this podcast if you are allergic to fun, have a history of laughing until you pee, or are afraid of a good time.
Talk to your doctor about patreon.com/neverseenitpod today. So besides the message part of Do the Right Thing, this movie is stylish as hell, and there's a lot of really amazing actors in the movie.
Absolutely. I said in the intro, I know there's a lot of people I will recognize whose names I don't know, but there were also people I just didn't know were in this movie. I didn't know John Turturro was in this. I didn't know Martin Lawrence shows up.
Lord, skinny little shit.
I didn't know Sam Jackson was in the movie.
No.
But yeah, top to bottom, everybody has this really defined character they're playing. They feel like real people you would run into in the neighborhood. And everybody has a nickname and everybody has a backstory. And you get just little sequences with them where it's here's a vignette with that person, here's a vignette with that person. And you get a fully formed idea of what it must be like to live in this neighborhood on the regular.
Yeah, you already mentioned most of them here. Sam Jackson is kind of the narrator. He is he is a local DJ who probably has a very, very, very low wattage radio station that goes, I don't know, a few blocks where everybody in the neighborhood can tune in to find out what's going on in the neighborhood.
And of course, that made me think of another movie we covered on the podcast when we watched American Graffiti. It's very similar in that regard, where it's one night, one day, where everybody's lives change in a single day.
A very consequential day.
A very consequential day. And there's a narration that's happening because it's paired with the DJ and the music they're listening to along the way.
Yeah. And the reason why I say it's very, very local is because Sam Jackson is just calling people out by name, and Mookie comes over there and actually gets on the mic and says, "Hey, I'm putting this out for Tina, my lady back home."
Or he's saying, "I see Mookie walking on the street," and everybody who's listening knows who that is.
Which is why he's kind of saddled up at the window watching everything going on in the neighborhood, which is great. But one name that you hadn't actually mentioned is Giancarlo Esposito, which between Do the Right Thing and when he got really, really famous for doing Breaking Bad, he didn't really do all that much. And I mentioned to you that he had done an interview well after Breaking Bad was off the air and he's become very successful and whatnot. He was in very dire straits, just emotionally, personally, and watching him in this movie and watching his career evolve into what it became, I really enjoyed his performance in the movie because I could just feel the outrage. I could feel the frustration, and I could feel, I don't know, just him kind of getting nowhere with the boycott after he is going around to everybody saying, we should boycott Sal's because X, Y, Z, and everybody else is just saying, you know what, man, that's Sal's restaurant. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. The pizza's good and it's cheap. What do you want from me, man?
And I guess he's supposed to be representative of one of these kinds of protests. Like, is he the peaceful protest? Is he the violent protest? What is he? Because he's involved in both parts of it.
Yeah, and I could just as soon say that, okay, he's just a really loud New Yorker and he is allowed to speak his mind in this establishment, but again, he's going to come back in a week and be fine about it.
Yeah, he'll get over it and they'll move on. Or he'll just grumble about it every time he comes into the restaurant, and Sal will never do anything about it because it's his restaurant. He can do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get the argument. Like, if you're in this neighborhood, maybe it would make sense to have a more diverse group of individuals featured on that wall. But also, he's an Italian American and these are all Italians on the wall.
Yeah.
It's not that big a leap to understand why these people are featured, including Al Pacino from The Godfather, coincidentally. There's two references to The Godfather.
There's a lot of connections between these two movies so far. And it's just really strange, Betsy, because we have been to New York just a couple of times, and we were in a pizzeria just this past year that was very similar. It wasn't like, hey, it's an Italian American kind of establishment. No, it was, I can't even remember the name of it. Maybe you do. But we went in there and there's all these different pictures of celebrities up on the wall that visited this pizzeria.
Yeah, instead of famous people who have visited, Sal just has famous Italians. Because I'm going to guess famous people don't come to this restaurant in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
I don't know. It's been around long enough that they might if the pizza's good enough.
It's famous in this neighborhood. I don't think it's famous beyond that trend.
Probably not. But who else we got here? Obviously, you mentioned Rosie Perez in the intro. This was her first movie. She is kind of representing the Puerto Rican side of all of the different, I don't know, racial groups in the movie, where she is actually Mookie's baby mama. And she's in her place taking care of their son. Mookie comes by every so often and says hi to her and says hi to the kid.
He's unreliable, so she's constantly having to remind him they exist and he should come up and see them.
Yeah. And I love Rosie Perez. I mean, separate from the strange intro of her just dancing to Public Enemy, I thought that was a little strange to start the movie with, but I don't know, maybe it's just a stylistic choice.
Well, let me ask you about that because I was trying to think, why this intro? Why does it look like this? Because it's like a picture of the street and she's clearly on a stage in a theater. So it's clearly not reality. And then when you watch the movie, there are times where it feels a little bit like a play where people are just sort of having their little moments with each other. They're not necessarily speaking in a way that you and I would speak to another human.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this, Betsy, as an explanation here, at least the inspiration for that intro. I read this in the trivia. It says, the opening dance sequence with Rosie Perez was inspired by the opening credit sequence with Anne Margaret in Bye Bye Birdie from 1963. Apparently, she does a very similar thing in that movie.
Yeah, it's just her on a soundstage looking at the camera singing.
Okay, then, but that was very much a Hollywood trope of that era. This is, the late 80s and early 90s. Hip hop culture is very much a thing. Public Enemy was everywhere. But this also demonstrates Spike Lee's his knowledge about movies, especially if he's looking back to 1950s and 60s movies, including another one that is referenced here. When Radio Raheem has his brass knuckles that say love and hate. Betsy, where have we seen this before?
Well, this is the other thing I referenced in the intro because this is a reference to Night of the Hunter. And he even does an interpretation of the speech that is given in Night of the Hunter, where he says, let me tell you the story about left hand and right hand, about love and hate, and how they wrestle each other, and hate's a goner, love's gonna win. It doesn't really mean anything when you see it in Night of the Hunter. Do you think it means more in this movie?
You could apply meaning to it, of course, because, what is represented here by Demare, him being up there to try to quiet the situation, you could apply the love angle to him, but hate is really the cops. The cops are coming in there and causing the love to fail.
There is love within this group. We've seen it all day long. Even though they fight with each other, that's what people who are tight do. They fight with each other.
Absolutely.
But to take it back to that, in Night of the Hunter, it's a guy who is a serial killer talking about, love and hate because he's posing as a preacher. But in this movie, it's Raheem, who is just a dude with a fucking boombox blasting the same song over and over. Arguably, he's trying to spread love. Like, he's just like a chill dude in the neighborhood, but then he gets fired up about really weird things. Like, he's really attached to this boombox. And when he goes into somebody else's business and he says, turn down the music, but he doesn't say please, that upsets Raheem.
Yeah, I mean, his moniker is Radio Raheem. He is always around blasting whatever is on his radio. So that is a slight to his identity.
But he's not hurting anybody by existing with his music.
No, I mean, I could take it a couple of different ways here. I mean, it is disrespectful for blaring your music. I mean, you and I can relate to this. I mean, anybody can relate to this, really. When you're out in public and people are on speakerphone, people have their music blaring everywhere. It's disrespectful to be in other people's business and blaring your fucking music or whatever it happens to be.
And if you're old and crotchety like we are getting to the threshold of everything is going to set us off quicker. So yeah, if somebody came in blasting music, I would probably be like, okay, do we need to? Do we need to right now?
Yeah.
But he's not really doing anything otherwise.
No, and I don't know, this is also kind of New York City kind of a thing where even on the subway, like we've been on the subway plenty of times, people blare their music in the subway all the time and people just let it happen. People are living their lives, and that's the whole thing about New York City. There's every single type of person under the sun in New York City, and that's what makes it great. But because this is a private business, Sal can say what he wants. He can have whatever rules that he wants, and he doesn't want music playing. He doesn't even have a radio playing music inside of there.
There is no music playing at any point in his restaurant. That's not his style. It's not his thing. He just wants to make his pizzas and then go home for the day.
Yeah, and he's not trying to be disrespectful to the music or to him or anybody, but in his eyes, Raheem is the one being disrespectful. And of course, he gets inspired by the story about no pictures on the wall. He goes in there and blaring the music again, and we see where it goes from there. But we got a few other people we got to mention in the movie, Betsy. You already mentioned some of the minor characters here. Martin Lawrence, I had no idea was ever in this movie. As I said, he's a skinny little shit. And you know what? So is Spike Lee. Holy crap, is he a little guy?
He was 32 when he made this. You could have told me he was 19 and I would have believed you.
I would have totally believed you. Ossie Davis is the guy who plays the mayor. And yeah, he is this, I don't know, I wouldn't even call him like a homeless guy. He's just a guy who is down on his luck. He doesn't really necessarily have a family anymore. And he has this moment in the movie when the kids are hassling him about, hey, you're just a drunk, you're a bum, whatever. He tells the story where he and his family were really struggling. He had 5 kids. He couldn't put food on the table. And all the kids say, well, you just needed to get a job, man. Why don't you get a job and get some money that way? I would have done anything to feed my family. But it's a generational gap. You don't understand how bad it really was.
And he even says to the kid, you don't know my pain. You don't know anything about me. He seems to be this like elder statesman of the street, which is why they call him the mayor.
Right.
You know, that's a moniker that one gets because everybody knows you. You are an old sage of wisdom, you know, that kind of a thing. But he's also a guy who doesn't really have a lot of money. He shows up to Sal's and says, do you have any work for me today? And he says, you can go and sweep the sidewalks. And then he gives him $1. And he says,
because nobody else wants to do it.
And he says, I'm going to make those sidewalks the cleanest in the city. They're going to be cleaner than they've ever been.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's unwilling to do the work, but he does just enough to go and buy a beer. And then he gets upset when they don't have the right kind of beer at the Korean corner store.
I really like his speech to them saying, hey, it takes a lot to make a man change his beer. And yeah, you're doing it. But yeah, I really like his character in the movie. There's also, what do they call her? The mother sister?
Mother sister.
Mother sister, played by Ruby Dee, who by the way, was married to Ossie Davis.
At the time they were making
they were making the movie. Exactly. Yep. So I thought that was a fun little fact. And as you said, she's kind of just the observer of everything. If DeMayer is the father, she is the mother, just kind of overseeing the neighborhood.
And she has the most dramatic moment in the entire movie when Sal's is burning down and all this chaos is unfolding around them. And she is just screaming.
She's just wailing.
Screaming and crying in the street. And DeMayer has to come and like comfort her.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, he literally stays in her apartment and she sleeps on the couch or something. They just have this really calm time where he says, where did you sleep? And she says, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go see if the neighborhood is still standing. And they both go and look out the window, completely solemn, and just see what's going on. And it's just another normal day. That's the other thing. The day is totally normal. It's hot, but normal. This chaotic thing happens. And then the next morning, it's just life goes on. Yeah. Life goes on as usual.
And Spike Lee goes out of his way here to make sure that you know that things are kind of back to normal because everybody's just going about their business in the street, playing basketball, going to work, getting their coffee, whatever it is that people do. And maybe that's just a message of, hey, this is just what it was like. this is just life. But think about where these two characters have been in their lives. You know, he tells the story about his own family. Like, we don't know anything about her or her family.
About mother, sister?
Yeah. Both these people have been around for a very long time and have seen a whole lot of things.
But you also see the younger people on the streets kind of taking care of them in little ways.
Yeah, to a point. And some of the, I guess you could call them punks, those are the people who are harassing Ossie Davis and not really respecting him and where he's coming from. It's a big generational divide here.
It's the same group that shows up at the end of the movie demanding to be let in for a slice of pizza, even though they're closed.
And they don't really dwell on it all that much, but there's this overhanging thing about kids, you don't know what real suffering is. You don't know what we have been through as far as, I mean, not even talking about the fight for civil rights or anything under the sun. It's just being abused by people and by the system and everything under the sun. And, of course, when everything is popping off and the cops come, the firefighters come, and you see a glimpse of what things were like back in the 60s when the fucking fire hoses were put on people.
You see shit that's still happening now, Trent. This movie is over 30 years old. We're going to be close to 40 years old in a few years.
Yeah.
And there's things that happen in Do the Right Thing that I'm like, I have recently seen this on the news. This is still something that is very relevant in 2026. So it just goes to show you that Spike Lee was really capturing a feeling in a moment that is extremely relatable and still very, very relevant to today.
And Spike Lee has been doing this his entire career. He is very adept to finding the button and pressing that button.
And then making you look at it. Don't turn away.
Yeah.
Look at it. And they're powerful moments. This is a powerful movie.
I didn't expect it to be, though.
No, I didn't expect, especially because it starts with a dance sequence. And then it's just a bunch of people bullshitting through this hot day in the summer.
Yeah.
For it to go where it did in the course of about 4 minutes. Like, it literally goes from, we're closing, we had a great day, to a woman screaming in the street while everybody's running around and there's a fire burning around them. And then it ends with that shot of Smiley pinning the picture to the wall and the fire is burning behind him. Like, come on, you think he knows a metaphor when he sees one?
Totally. And I want to transition now to kind of how the movie looks, because again, there's stylization all over this thing. And
Dutch angles galore, baby.
The one thing I wanted to mention was the thing that kind of struck me the most. It's when Radio Raheem is about to do his speech. Him and Mookie meet on the street, they dap each other up, and they're just talking with each other a little bit, and he shows off his brass knucks. The way the camera just shifts from showing both of them to right in front of Raheem, and he, throws up the knuckles, showing the camera and telling his story.
Straight to camera.
When he's done with this story, the camera moves back out and shows the two of them again, resuming their conversation.
As if he never broke the fourth wall just now.
Absolutely. There's no cuts here. It's just camera movement.
There's a lot of that in this, where they kind of swing from one person over here on the right to one person over here on the left. And for somebody who's still a relatively new filmmaker, this wasn't his first movie, but he's still pretty early in his career. Spike Lee knows how to move this camera. And by doing, as I said, all these Dutch angles and things throughout the film, it gives you the sense something's gonna go down. Like, when it all happens at the end of the movie, you think while it's happening throughout, it's just stylistic. He wants to be quirky and like tilt the camera and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it's to add to the unease and the fact that this is not all okay, guys. What you think you're looking at is not what you're looking at, because it's all about to pop off.
And I want to go to the scene here where it's John Turturro and Spike Lee talking about, hey man, I want to talk to you. And basically it's about John Turturro's just vision in his mind about black people. Spike Lee just comes out and asks him, who's your favorite actor? Who's your favorite artist? Who's your favorite sports person? It's all black people. Magic Johnson, Eddie Murphy, and Prince. And I'm not going to say the words that he's saying here, but he says, well, those people aren't whatever.
They're not black, basically. Like, it doesn't count. The way he's describing it, the long and short is, oh, they don't count.
And like Michael Jordan. And we watched that documentary that they did about the Bulls in the 90s, and they talked to him about the fact that Michael Jordan didn't really think of himself as black because white people buy sneakers too. That was his argument back in the 80s when he became Michael Jordan. So he appealed to a lot of different kinds of people for the business, for the money. But it's not just this scene itself, it's what follows, Betsy. And I don't know how to explain why he did this in the movie, but we get like 5 different straight on shots of different people talking directly to camera, saying all of the racial stereotypes and slurs, everything under the sun about the respective groups that we're talking about here. We got John Turturro saying a bunch of mess. We got Spike Lee saying a bunch of mess. We get one of the Puerto Rican guys saying a bunch of stuff. The Korean guy says a bunch of stuff. And the cop says a bunch of stuff. Everybody gets their say. But what reason does Spike Lee have to include this in the movie? I don't understand this.
I think it's to demonstrate that everybody has their own prejudice. Even though you think this is a movie exclusively about people being racist against black people or prejudice against black people, it's also within. He's showing how people within that neighborhood are doing it. The black guys on the street who are just shooting the shit, talking about Mike Tyson and giving each other crap all day. One of them's getting upset about the Koreans who have moved in on the corner.
Yeah.
Which is so weird because the argument he gives is that building was boarded up for more years than I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes and actually starts a business and saves this building and is putting money into the neighborhood. But because they're Korean, he's got a problem with it. And he's just like, I just can't believe it. I can't believe that that's how this would
go. The conversation then turns to, well, why didn't you do it?
Yeah.
All these guys, these old guys, which, by the way, I love the conversations that they're having. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie. But the back and forth that they have about, well, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it? Well, maybe you should just be thankful that somebody did it. Who the fuck cares who did it if they're not a part of your community? Well, by golly, they are now. They're serving the community here, not just the predominantly black people who live there. It's everybody who wants to go and get, a single beer.
Or a shit ton of batteries.
Man, I lament the death of the boombox. I love fucking boomboxes. I wish I had one.
Trent, cassettes are coming back. Don't you worry, sir. But yeah, at the end of the movie, when everything's going down, the guy and his wife are standing there and he's got a fucking broom trying to keep people away from his store to protect himself.
Right.
And he says, I'm like you. And he puts his hand out to shake hands because he's like, I'm just trying to get by like everybody else.
I didn't do anything to you people. I'm not a part of this at all. I do nothing but try to help people and make a little bit of money for my family. Please do not do anything to my business.
Please don't burn my business to the ground. Please don't destroy my business. This is all I have.
Right.
And it's the way that they don't understand this. Everybody is just reacting to emotion as opposed to the logical part of their brain. And again, you completely understand in the circumstances why they are doing that.
Everybody is hot in a lot of different senses of that word. But all right, I think we've covered the vast majority of the main parts of Do the Right Thing. What else did you have to mention here, Betsy?
I don't remember where in the movie this was, but there was a scene where there were people screaming at each other. I know there's a lot of that happens in the movie, but it's countered with the jazz in the score. And I don't know, I just really liked those two things playing against each other. And there's a credit in the beginning of the movie that on the score, it features Branford Marsalis, who is a jazz musician. And I don't remember if it was Branford or his brother Wynton Marsalis, but one of those two spoke to my class when I was in college.
Okay.
I want to say it was Wynton Marsalis, but I'm not 100% because it was over 20 years ago. But I saw the name today and I was like, wait, is that the guy that came to my school? I think it was the other one, but just a weird little connection for you. They're brothers, so there's definitely a connection there.
Good memory, I guess.
There's also another scene in this movie where the guy comes with the big block of ice and he's making shaved ice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the piraguas. And the only reason I know this is because of In the Heights, the movie and the musical. And that was another thing I was thinking of. If I'm thinking that this movie was inspired by American Graffiti. I would say that In the Heights is certainly in some regard inspired by Do the Right Thing, because
I can see that.
it's all in this little tight-knit neighborhood. It's all these people who are born in America, people whose parents came from other countries, and they are all just coexisting in this one neighborhood in New York. And there's an entire thing in that musical, if memory serves, about the shaved ice guy versus the ice cream truck, which also happens in this movie. So I think there's some connections here. I would have to look into it, though.
Yeah, I've only ever seen the In the Heights movie once, and that was years ago. But I totally get the comparison between them. It's just a different community.
And then I just had one more tiny thing. When Buggin' Out is having his fight in the store at the beginning, and then Mookie takes him out to the street, he keeps saying bet, which is really strange because bet has made a comeback. It is very much a thing I have heard people today saying.
Yes, and it's just another example, Betsy, of pop culture and just language in general coming from the African American community. All of the different slang that you hear on Black Twitter and just the internet in general of Black people communicating with each other, the really cool stuff makes it into the mainstream, and they don't get enough credit for introducing such words.
Most of the stuff on TikTok gets started by one creator, and then some white person somewhere steals it, and they're like, oh yeah, no, they popularized it. Yeah, but who started it? Go back to the source, because this happens all the time where people who are the creators are not getting enough credit for what they created.
Agreed. But Betsy, I suppose since this is still Biggest Movie May, we have to talk about why Do the Right Thing is included in Biggest Movie May. Betsy, you did some research before we actually sat down to watch the movie. Hit me.
All right, so this movie was made for a budget of $6.5 million roughly, and it made over $37 million. And I would say this is a pretty independent film of the time, or at least it feels like it.
It feels like it, but it was put out by Universal, so it's pretty big.
Yeah, but $37 million for this kind of a movie feels very respectable for the time it came out. It is in the Criterion Collection. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 92%. Even this many years later. At the time of the film's release, both Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert ranked the film as the best of 1989, and they later ranked it as one of the top 10 films of the decade.
Wow, and I wanted to add on to that, as long as you said Roger Ebert here. At the time, Spike Lee was actually speaking out against a whole lot of other film critics who either didn't get the point of the movie, or they straight up said, hey, this is the movie itself is going to cause riots in the street. Spike Lee went out of his way to praise Roger Ebert's review of his movie because he actually got it.
He had more of an open mind about what he was trying to say with the movie, as opposed to, well, this is going to be too many hostilities that will be brought up because of the film.
Exactly.
Well, that being said, Trent, in June 2006, Entertainment Weekly placed this movie at number 22 of the 25 most controversial movies ever.
I suppose at the time, I mean, obviously we weren't very much aware of what was happening in 1989, but I get it.
In the same year, the Writers Guild of America West ranked the film's screenplay 93rd in the WGA's list of 101 greatest screenplays. It was in the second edition of the AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies. It came in at number 96, so the second time they did the list, it made the cut. It was one of only 9 films to be selected by the Library of Congress for addition to the National Film Registry in its first year of eligibility.
Wow.
So the very second it was able to go in, it went in. And of course, the movie did get 2 Oscar nominations, one for Spike Lee for Best Original Screenplay, and one for Danny Aiello as Best Supporting Actor. But here's the other thing, because there was kind of a controversy around this. During the Oscar ceremony in 1990, Kim Basinger came out and she was supposed to announce the nominees for Best Picture, but she ignored the script and she said, quote, "We've got 5 great films here, and they're great for one reason, because they tell the truth. But there is one film missing from this list that deserves to be on it because, ironically, it might tell the biggest truth of all, and that's Do the Right Thing," end quote. So yeah, she just went out there and said what she was thinking, because this is a time where, you know, Oscar's so white, even though it wasn't a trending thing, it was very white in those days in particular.
Oh, yeah.
And there were only 5 Best Picture nominees. They knew the movie existed. They nominated it for 2, but they didn't nominate it for Best Picture. And Spike Lee is one of those guys that he does hold that chip on his shoulder about a lot of these movies that he's put out for reasons like this. I would have to go to see what else was nominated, but my guess is it was a lot of forgettable fare, and we are not talking about them 36 years later.
It's true. They're not included in Big Movie May, let alone Biggest Movie May. But all right, I'm always interested to get the behind the scenes or just a little bit of extra context behind why we are including these movies into Biggest Movie May, of course. And as I am with all of these other movies that we are covering, I'm very glad that we found a place to watch Do the Right Thing, because I don't know where else you could actually include a movie like this into a series outside of, you know, a Big Movie May. We've even talked about, like, we got an entire list of Spike Lee movies that we could cover that we haven't seen, but at the very least, we can cross one of them off the list. So with that, I'm going to say we're done with Do the Right Thing. If you would like to tell us what you think about Spike Lee, about Do the Right Thing, about any other movies of his that you want us to cover, email us neverseenitpod@gmail.com. As we have mentioned before, the middle of May is when Betsy and I are on vacation, so as of this taping, we don't have any emails to read today. So I'm just going to say thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you would like more content from us, please go to patreon.com/neverseenitpod, where you can get over 160 extra pieces of content over there, where Betsy and I talk about romance movies, about our favorite movies that we've seen a whole lot of times, scary movies that are in a whole lot of different subgenres of horror. And there's even a show where we literally just spin a wheel, go to a year, and we watch a movie that is playing in the theater at the time. Sometimes those movies become new favorites of ours. So again, patreon.com/neverseenitpod. Betsy, we got one more week of Biggest Movie May. How else could we possibly end the biggest Big Movie May we've ever done?
Well, Trent, there were obviously many, many we could choose from, but we're doing a little bit of a sandwich here because we started the month with movie 400 being The Godfather. So of course we have to do The Godfather Part 2.
Of course. How could you possibly deny, how could you deny me, of all people, the continuation of the Corleone family? So come back next week for the conclusion of Biggest Movie May. Until then, my name is Trent.
My name is Betsy.
We'll catch you then. See ya, folks.
Bye.